Hi, everyone. Welcome to our webinar tonight on CET Jordan. We're going to give other participants just a minute or two to log in, but while we're doing that, we have a little welcome poll for you. All right, we're going to get started. Thanks for completing the poll. It's great to see a mix of people here looking to study abroad at different times, and we're excited to share information with you tonight about CET Jordan. My name is Shelly, and I'll be your host. Our goal tonight is to give you a glimpse of what life is like at CET Jordan. We'll go over the advantages of studying in Amman, what courses you can take, what it's like to live with a local roommate, and the many ways that the program helps you connect to the country and the local community through activities and excursions. We'll also go over the admissions process and what it really takes to apply. At the end of the session, we want to answer any and all questions you may have about the program. You should see a Q&A button on the bottom of your screen in the meeting controls. Throughout the session, submit any questions you have there, and we'll answer them when we get to the questions portion of the webinar at the end. All right, let's get started. First up, let's meet our panelists.
Hi everybody, مساء الخير. أنا اسمي أليجرا وأنا مديرة البرنامج للأردن بالشرق الأوسط ل CET Academic Programs. My name is Allegra and I'm the Programs Manager for Jordan here at CET. I'm based in Washington and our headquarters here, and I work very closely with our team on site to design program components, ensure program quality, manage student health and safety. So basically I work behind the scenes to make the program the best that it can be. I too am a lifelong learner of Arabic, and I studied abroad in Egypt and Syria.
Hi, my name is Savannah. I'm a student services coordinator here at CET, which means that I work with students from the time that they hit apply now and come into our application system all the way until they get on a plane. So I help walk you through any of the application materials, but then also all the things that you need to do to get ready to go abroad. I also studied abroad, but I studied abroad in Central America in kind of a comparative program, but I'm really excited and happy to support students in a couple of our different programs, and I had the pleasure of visiting Jordan for the first time just close to New Year. So I now have an even better sense of what you all are getting into. And you'll see at the end that all my contact information is there, so feel free to reach out if you have any questions.
All right, study abroad in Jordan. Why Jordan? Jordan is a really great place to learn Arabic and gain an exposure to a mixture of sub-dialects of the sort of Levantine region. It's really nestled at the heart of the Levant. You can see on the map there, sort of in the southern part. And then on Jordan's southern and eastern borders, it touches the Arabian Peninsula and the Gulf region. And then the southernmost port of Aqaba is actually only miles away from the African continent. So this geographic location gives Jordan both an interesting and very significant sort of stance geopolitically. It became an independent state in 1946, and only 2 years later began accepting the first of many waves of Palestinian refugees. And when you add to that subsequent Iraqi and Syrian refugees, many other communities around the region who have immigrated to Jordan for economic and other opportunities, you've got a microcosm of the greater region and Arab world. Amman in particular is a great place to study as well. Our program is based there in the capital. With a population of about 4 million, Amman houses a little less than half of the country's overall population, which is about 9.7 million. So Amman is really the place to be. It's certainly the cultural capital of the country. A lot of these groups that I referred to earlier have immigrated to the capital and live there together. It's a relatively new city. Again, the state is only, became a formal country in the 1950s, late 1940s. But then you also have antiquity. You have ancient Roman effects as well. It has an ethnic, national, age diversity. You have Sudanese and Filipino communities, Yemeni and Syrian restaurants and businesses. There are a lot of different people living in Amman. So it's a really great and interesting, vibrant place to study. Our program is based at the University of Jordan in Amman, so you'll take your classes at the CET Center on campus. We are housed within the International Relations Department in the Faculty of Political Science. And as a student on campus, you have access to a number of resources, including a really amazing library. You'll have a UJ student ID card, which gets you some sort of reduced entry fees at some of the city's various sites. In terms of the programs, we offer 2 programs that run year-round. We have the Intensive Arabic Language Program and the Middle East Studies and Internship Program. The Intensive Program does have a language prerequisite. Both programs really share the same core Arabic curriculum, housing, activities, they run side by side. What makes them unique from one another is their electives and the language pledge. So for the intensive program, students sign a full pledge and commit to speaking Arabic 100% of the time. And on the internship program, students sign what we call a limited pledge that does allow them very specific and finite, clearly articulated opportunities to speak some English. And then the other big piece is, again, the electives, which we'll talk about in a little bit. On both programs, we really focus on language and cultural immersion. So again, all year round, you're taking core courses, Modern Standard Arabic and Jordanian dialect. And we teach these as 2 separate classes, but really they work together to teach you how to navigate that diglossia, to switch and move up and down that spectrum as a native speaker would. Arabic will be an integral part of your daily life. You will go shopping, you will ride taxis, you will talk to people in Arabic every day. All students have a language partner, and you have 3 hours per week of one-on-one meetings. For our Arabic coursework, we have a lot of really great opportunities to get out of the classroom through our field-based excursions. We do cooking classes. Students will go out to campus and survey Jordanian students on their opinions about world events, the Middle East peace deal, the refugee crisis, whatever the hottest topic of the moment is. Students may attend a meeting of parliament, visit a number of neighborhoods around the city, report back. A typical day would be maybe going to office hours in the morning from 8 to 9. You'd have your core language courses from like 9 to 12, and then you might take your electives in the afternoon. Depending on the day, maybe you have a language partner meeting. For intensive students, that's pretty much the same pattern from Sunday to Thursday, 5 days a week. The weekend in Jordan is Friday, Saturday. For internship students, you're in class 3 days a week, Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday, and then you attend your internship site for 2 full days, typically Monday, Wednesday. By the end of the program, students can expect to make incredible linguistic gains. You will be conversing easily with Jordanians, engaging on social media in Arabic entirely, Facebooking, Snapchatting, Instagramming, everything in Arabic. Conducting interviews, you will be able to give a formal presentation, write a 10-page research paper, and present your future employer or grad school with a formal OPI score. What is an OPI score, you may ask? An OPI is an oral proficiency interview. So it's basically a conversation between you and a certified tester or a certified examiner who is assessing your speaking skills. And they're using a rubric of standards developed by the American Council for Teaching Foreign Languages. This is an internationally recognized set of standards. There are also conversion rates. So if you're somebody who's interested in perhaps a future career in diplomacy with the State Department or a military career, you can convert your OPI score to the Interagency Language Roundtable or IRL, as well as the military scores as well. So students will do an unofficial OPI at the beginning of the program. Not something to be nervous about. It's a simple conversation to see where you're at. We use this to place you in your coursework. At the end of the program, you will do an official OPI and actually get a certificate with your score that you can use on your resume for grad school, applying to a job, that comes with a description of what your skill level is and what you can do. And our students make incredible gains. So they will move up a whole level. So novice mid to intermediate mid, or intermediate high to advanced high, or advanced mid, or something like that. So for the intensive program, as we said, core courses, MSA, Jordanian dialect. In the summer, that's all you do. It's a very intensive program, 8 weeks, fast-paced, very rigorous. You knock out basically a year's worth of Arabic in a summer. Sorry, a semester's worth of Arabic in a summer. In the fall and spring, you add on to that electives, and you have a number of options with CET. You'll want to check with your home institution about what your credit load limits may be, but you can choose between 15 to 18 credits on the program. The electives listed here in this slide kind of give you a sense. So the top square are our content electives. So these courses are taught in Arabic, and it may seem kind of incredible, but you will be able to take these classes. They start halfway through the term. So we kind of front load the hours of your core coursework to give you the foundation you need to start taking thematic content in Arabic. And then you also have just more straight language courses. You can explore practical applications of MSA. If you're looking to be using Arabic in your career, if you want to take more dialect, we have a really fun course that allows you to really explore dialect in Jordanian popular culture. So that is the intensive program. And you also have, not listed here, an independent studies option that we offer. For the internship program, in the summertime, the core Arabic course hours are reduced a little bit to allow you time to do that internship. So you're doing Arabic and then 2 days a week, full-time interning and taking the internship course. We also have an option not for credit for the internship if you are not looking to seek credit over this summer. In the fall and spring, students will take the internship component, which is a 3-credit course and experiential package altogether. And then you have the option to take, again, 1 or 2, depending on any kind of credit load limitations at your school, electives. And we offer Middle East Studies courses taught in English. We have some examples listed here. And you can also choose to take more Arabic if that is what excites you. In reality, if you are on one program and you're really excited about the electives of another program, most of the time we're able to accommodate that. It would just be a matter of letting Savannah know as you've applied and committed to the program, and typically we're able to kind of accommodate individual requests like that. So in terms of the internships, we're going to dive deep here a little bit and talk about how this works. Students are typically doing 2 days a week, and then you're attending your course. It's sort of like a seminar style, a longer class that meets once a week. Throughout the term, you'll be building a bibliography of scholarly works related to your field. You'll be completing regular reflections, and then at the end, you'll tie that all into a pretty heavy, serious research paper about that experience. Some of the skills that you can expect to be building are certainly intercultural communication, learning how to navigate ambiguity and a workspace in another culture, and then definitely practicing Arabic in a very real applied context. In terms of placements, we look at your academic interests and qualifications, and then we look at our organizational partners and what their needs are. And finally, we look at your language skill. We do have a few placements that have a language requirement. Many of them don't, so it's totally okay if you're coming in with no Arabic or very little Arabic. We can absolutely find you a placement where most of the time you'll be speaking in English. In terms of examples of what students do, Reclaim Childhood is a wonderful organization that offers sort of like a two-pronged experience. So interns there are both doing office, social media, editing, report, administrative work, and attending sports practices and working directly with the constituents of this organization, women and girls the program is to build empowerment and leadership skills. So there's through sports. So you're both playing and engaging and then doing the administrative office side. Another example would be the Jordan Times. That is an English language newspaper. Interns there are editing and proofing. And actually, this is one internship that doesn't follow the pattern, and it's evenings because it's a morning paper. So you go in the evening and are working with colleagues to meet those late night deadlines in order to get the paper out in the morning. So those are just a few examples of a number of internships that we offer. And Savannah is going to tell us a little bit about activities and excursions.
So, as Allegra has described, students that participate on the CET Jordan programs definitely work really hard, but we also want to make sure that some of that learning takes place outside of the classroom. And so we do try to reward you all for your hard work and take you on 2 really cool excursions outside of Amman. And what's good to note about these is that everything is included. It's part of the tuition that you've already paid to CET, so we handle logistics. And the reason that we do that is because it is an academic experience. Your language partners and roommates are invited to join. We also often have instructors that join. All of the students, both internship and intensive language students, go together. So it's a full language pledge the entire time. So your discussions are going to be in Arabic, and even though you're seeing really cool sights and maybe taking a Jeep ride or floating in the Dead Sea, you're also tying a lot of these experiences back to what you've learned about in your Arabic classes or maybe even in some of your content courses. So it is an academic experience, but it's also a huge highlight for students. And if you haven't gone to the CET website to look up the student blogs, I really recommend doing that. You can filter it by Jordan, and we have some really awesome photos and stories that students have told of their impressions of these different excursions. So sorry, that's the 3-day one, but there's also a shorter 1-day excursion to northern Jordan, where students work together to put together marketing videos in teams for the different sites that they see, and there'll be a viewing and sort of a friendly competition and a prize for some of the best videos. So those are some of the learnings that will take place outside of the classroom, but are still very much included in the CET curriculum. So while we work you hard, and even those ones are academic, we also want to make sure that you have a chance to sort of unwind, get recentered. And so we also set up just extracurricular activities that are mostly, going to be physical, of a yoga class or a soccer game. So you can kind of put your classwork aside and unwind in that way. Or if you're more of a creative person and that outlet helps more, there can be Arabic calligraphy or things that are a little bit more creative, just to get you a chance to maybe bond with a roommate or another CET student and get a little bit more involved in what's going on around Amman, but isn't necessarily going to be graded or mandatory or anything like that.
Housing. You see a photo here of students actually doing a cooking class in the housing. So that's a student and her professor learning how to make a Jordanian dish. Students live in apartment-style housing that's walking distance from campus. This is actually, the benefit of this can't be overstated. Amman is a very busy city, 4 million people, lots of traffic, no metro system. So not having to sit in traffic every day to commute is killer. You walk right to campus, really easy, 10, 15-minute walk. Apartments tend to be 2 to 3 bedroom, and every apartment has a Jordanian roommate living in it who acts as a guide, a resource, and somebody to help you keep the language pledge, because we know it can be a little tricky or awkward to be keeping up a pledge with a bunch of non-native speakers. It's really nice to have a Jordanian in the mix to kind of help everybody stay committed. Our apartments are fully furnished, so you really don't need to bring anything with you, towels, linens, all the accessories for cooking, TV, air conditioning and common spaces. All the furniture is ready to go when you get there. And we really view housing as an extension of academics. We've chosen a neighborhood that is close to campus, has a lot of amenities, but is not a Western neighborhood, and there's not a lot of English spoken there. And in some ways, it's a little bit more of a traditional neighborhood. Living with roommates and in an apartment building where there are Jordanian families does mean that it's an immersive experience. It's not the same as, you know, a dorm or living, you know, apartment living somewhere near campus in the US. So it's a very enriching experience, but it can be challenging. And there's a very direct correlation between the language and culture skills that you're building in class, that you take out with you, go home, have to navigate a situation or a conversation with your roommate in Arabic and apply what you've learned. But students really get a lot out of the roommate program. Sometimes they end up becoming really good friends. At very least, they've had access to a really rich resource, somebody to ask questions to, talk to, learn from. And students will cook meals in their apartments. You've got a full kitchen, grocery stores nearby. If you've never cooked before, we literally teach you how. In some of our cooking lessons, you'll learn how to make dishes with local healthy ingredients. And there are also a ton of restaurants and cafes right nearby. So food-wise, you will be set. In terms of our staff, for many students, staff are really the highlight of the program. Manal Yusuf is our academic director, so she designs curriculum and syllabi. She created the textbook that you'll use. We do not use Electives. We know that a lot of students use that among other texts in the US, but we have our own custom curriculum that we use in Jordan. Manal advises students, she trains teachers. She's really a force of nature, and her energy is contagious. Her standards are very high. She pushes students, but she offers unwavering support and incredible flexibility, and she's really rooting for you, and she's really your advocate. So if you ever have any kind of academic query, she's the person who helps you out. Mazen and Ahmed are our resident directors, so they handle all the non-academic aspects of the program. They hold regular office hours. They're very accessible to students. They're both very passionate about study abroad and cultural learning, and they really do bend over backwards to support and empower students to have a successful experience. And last is our teaching team. They are highly engaged and dedicated instructors. They also have a lot of energy. Every class has a WhatsApp group, and they have been known to respond to questions about homework and studying even late into the night. Our class sizes are quite small. For Arabic, we cap them at 8. Sometimes they could range though from like 3 to 6. So it's a pretty intimate classroom. You will get to know your cohort really well, and your instructor will really be one of the people you see most on the program. And they are just so excited and happy to support students. And I think a lot of students really come back, and the people that you meet on the program are often the highlight of the experience.
Cool. So hopefully, if you don't already have an application open for the summer, for the fall, this has convinced you that it's a good program and that you really want to do it. And so I'm here to help you kind of walk through what it looks like to apply to the program and what you may see if you log in to a CET portal. So we really do try to keep it streamlined. We're not trying to, you know, ruin your life. You're balancing your exams and your other coursework. So you'll see an application form that asks really standard questions like, why do you want to go abroad? How do you see this fitting into your goals? And we do kind of ask you to think about the challenges that you may anticipate facing while you're abroad. But I always recommend it's just sort of quality over quantity. So long as you've shown that you're really kind of paying attention to what the question is asking and giving us a straight answer to it, you don't have to worry about submitting, you know, pages and pages of writing. Then everything after that is fairly straightforward. We do ask for an official transcript, and then you'll see that there are two different recommendations. One is just from a faculty member. If you're on the intensive language track, we do ask that it is an Arabic professor that can speak a little bit to your language experience, but for internship students, you can ask any professor that you think could speak well to you. And then the study abroad office recommendation is much less of like a kind of a character recommendation. They don't have to know you well or write a letter or anything like that. It's essentially something that you can initiate right through our portal. It gets sent to the study abroad office at your home campus, and it basically lets them know that you're interested in studying abroad with us. They can sort of give us the thumbs up that they acknowledge it, and send any notes that they may have to us about things that we need to help keep in mind for you or for students from that school. So nothing here really takes too long. Intensive language students will also see a language evaluation form. Again, that's just for us to get a sense of the Arabic that you've maybe taken in high school or in college, or maybe you're a heritage speaker that's never taken it formally, but you've spoken it at home. It just helps us get a sense of who's going to be on the program and how we can make sure that our curriculum is going to meet you where you need to be met. Okay, and so we also know that studying abroad can be very expensive. So CET does offer scholarships that all of our students are eligible for. There are a couple different ones. You can apply to all of them. You can apply to one, two, all three, absolutely up to you. Something important to note is that the need-based scholarship is issued on a rolling basis. So as you're working on your application, you can fill that out. You will always be notified about your award for this need-based scholarship before you have to commit to the program. So if you really need to know, those awards are typically between $500 and $1,500, and if that makes the difference, you won't have to commit to us before you've heard about those. The diversity and inclusion and academic excellence scholarships are a little bit different. They are reviewed once the deadline has passed and we have the full set of applications, and then depending on the term, there are one or two awardees that do receive those scholarships. But if you want any more information about these, it's on the CET website, but also as soon as you open up an application, even if you haven't filled out anything, you will see a few resources already loaded into your account, and one of them is all about these scholarships. There's links to each of the applications, so you can go in and kind of investigate those even before you've worked on your CET Jordan application. We did have an academic excellence awardee on our program this spring. So CET students, CET Jordan students have won it. And so definitely keep applying because it could be you. We also are, an FEA Access partner. If you haven't heard of FEA, it's the Fund for Education Abroad. And it's for students that are typically from underrepresented demographics and study abroad, like first generation, students that have studied with technical or community colleges. Again, there's lots of good information about them. Just Google FEA, but we do have some FEA scholars that have gone on our programs too.
Thanks, Savannah and Allegra. We've got some great questions that are already coming in, so we're going to get to those. And I've got another poll for you all too. Now that you've heard some more about the program and the different features that it offers, what are you most excited about? Why are you thinking about studying in Jordan? And feel free to continue to put in questions as we go through answers, and we'll try to get to as many as we can. So Allegra, I'm going to toss this first one to you. Do students on the internship program typically make the same language gains on the OPI as the intensive language students?
Yeah, actually, interestingly, I was just looking at our data yesterday. The differential between internship and intensive language is completely minuscule. I mean, it's like 0.000 something. The major factors that really control language proficiency gain on OPI is where you start, first of all. So if you are, and this is true for any language, if you are a beginner, you will progress more rapidly than somebody who is more advanced. And that's just the way we learn language, right? So if you're starting out advanced low, going through a semester and getting to advanced mid is a big achievement. Like moving that one sub-level, sub-level is a big achievement. If you're starting novice low, it's very likely that you could get to intermediate low or intermediate mid, because you're learning in a more vertical way, so you shoot up that, that funnel. The other big thing that really determines OPI gain is language pledge. So for internship students, there's some flexibility, right? There's going to be some variety, because you have some moments where you don't have to keep the pledge. You as a individual can commit to the pledge as much as you want. And so that's the other kind of realm where there's a little variety. I would say if you're doing internship, yes, you can make the same gains, but the more you commit to the pledge, the more likely you are to make those gains in your language. And also keep in mind that if you are already more advanced, you might see it less improvement or less gain than you are if you're a beginner. But again, our data shows that all students, the averages are almost exactly the same. So.
Thanks, Allegra. I'm gonna share the results of our poll with you all. For those of you that said the food, I am right there with you. Our entire staff was just in Jordan in January, as Savannah mentioned, and the food was definitely a highlight for me too. But good for you all who are excited about improving your Arabic language skills. This program can definitely help you do that. Okay, another question we've got, Allegra. This is a great one. It's about Jewish students on the program. And the question is it safe and appropriate to have a visible Jewish identity on the program? Is there a Jewish community in Amman? Is it possible to visit Israel during the program?
It's a great question. Many students visit Israel during the program. I think the biggest consideration is sort of the academic rigor and load. I think a 3-day weekend is probably a better time, or during the program break is ideal. It can be just tough to manage in terms of time to take a weekend trip internationally, depending on, do you have finals or midterms or where you are in the program. But as a destination, absolutely, students travel to Israel all the time. In terms of a Jewish community in Amman, yes. It is the type of community, though, that is not necessarily on the surface. And so there are definitely people there, but there isn't going to be a synagogue down the street that you're just going to walk on into and go to service. In terms of being kind of having a visible identity, what I always tell students is that first off, I will say with staff, absolutely. CET staff are 100% a safe space. They're definitely people that students can share that identity with 100% of the time. Outside of staff, I think it's important to develop rapport, to get to know someone before deciding whether or not you're comfortable sharing that part of your identity. For the most part, Jordanians are good at sort of separating Jewish religious identity from Israel, politics, Zionism, right? Because these are two very different things. But it is important to know that, Jordan's population is probably 60% of Palestinian origin in some way, shape, or form. And all of those people have been displaced because of what's going on in Israel-Palestine. So there are a lot of very critical views of Israeli politics. There are a lot of very, negative, I think, direct criticisms that you will hear, a lot of more negative rhetoric than we hear here in the US, and a lot of very direct and kind of open political criticism. And you may hear, racial slurs and things that are harmful and hateful, just generally speaking. So I think it really depends on the person, and I think that relationship that you build. And if students at any point in time have questions or kind of talk to staff about, my roommate, for example, like we're getting really close, they seem like a cool, open-minded person, I kind of want to share this part of my identity with them, staff can kind of help guide, like, okay, here are types of questions you can ask, or here's a way to approach that conversation to share that part of who you are, and decide at the end of the day if you're comfortable sharing that.
Thanks, Allegra. Savannah, a question for you. So a student's asking about using financial aid on the program and where they can find out more information about what's included in the program fee or what estimated out-of-pocket expenses there might be.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So there are a couple different resources. I know we talked a little bit about the CET scholarship and the FEA scholarship. I always recommend talking to your home school to see if there are grants or other kind of scholarships that are unique to your school. But if you're applying, let's say, for a larger one and they really need to understand a breakdown, or maybe you're talking to the bursar and you need to know about your financial aid package and you need to know a little bit more about what CET does and doesn't cover, I always point students to the CET website. At the very bottom of this Jordan pages, there's a whole breakdown of what is included, like the transcript, the OPI certificate, the excursions, visa reimbursement for entering the country, all that good stuff, housing, but then there's also a budget sheet. And so that is like a PDF that's downloadable. There's one for every program. So even if you're peeking around at some other CET programs, there's a budget sheet for both summer and spring, fall terms that you can print out or email, take with you if you need to use that for any sort of scholarship or financial aid funding.
Awesome, thanks, Savannah. Allegra, another one for you, another great academic question. So this person says they're looking at joining the program for fall 2020 for the internship program. How accommodating is the program for taking one elective in English and one elective in Arabic?
I would say very accommodating. Typically in the fall and spring, I would say we have more intensive language students on the program, so we tend to open more of the Arabic content options. The only scenario where you may not be able to take your very top English elective is if we don't have enough students interested in that class for us to open it and run it. But in terms of wanting one English and one Arabic, very flexible. Which English class really will depend on the cohort and what students have chosen, because we have some limitations in terms of like the minimum enrollment in order to run a course.
All right, thank you. Another quick academic question, Allegra. Is there a specific textbook that we use instead of Al-Kitab? Is there a name, or can students preview the book before arriving?
Yeah, so the textbook we use has not yet been published. So unfortunately, there is no way to preview it. It's called Lughati al-Arabiyya, but you will get it on site. A copy of the textbook is included in your program fee.
Wonderful. And I'll just mention as well that we do have syllabi available for all of our courses on our website as well. So that can give you a great preview of the academic coursework and what you will be learning in each individual course, whether it's an elective or a level of MSA or dialect.
Yeah, and again, as I said before, our academic director who created her own textbook knows that students oftentimes are coming from El-Kitab. So she has that in mind. She knows that you're maybe going back to continue with El-Kitab. So I don't think we've had students really have too many issues in terms of continuity of material. Obviously, every institution is different. Do you need to test back in? Do you need to have a certain course equivalency? If you do, you can note that in your course preference form, and Savannah will ensure that our academic team knows about that. But we haven't had students, in terms of the material covered, have big challenges or issues, transitioning back. If you're worried or thinking about, taking Arabic again when you get home.
Great, thanks, Allegra. Savannah, I'll have you start out with this one, and Allegra, you can jump in if you want. We have a question about how expensive is it to live in Amman? How much should we expect in terms of personal expenses per week? Savannah, you're muted.
You're right. Okay, I'm back in it. No, I should have had the budget sheet actually pulled up, because that one of the sections in there is personal expenses. But I think what I'll say is Amman in and of itself, of catching a taxi, or honestly, we used Uber quite frequently, and it was maybe 2 or 3 Jordanian dinar to make your way across the city. We ate like kings and queens for very affordable prices, especially we're coming from Washington, D.C., where everything feels incredibly expensive. But I would say you can get a great filling meal, especially if you're kind of visiting local street vendors, for 2 or 3 dinar. But students can also sort of make with it what they want. If you're the type of person that like really likes going out and shopping and kind of getting out and doing activities, yeah, those things can actually start to add up. Or students that prefer to eat out for every meal versus kind of practicing cooking for themselves and buying those raw ingredients at markets, or collaborating with roommates to cook group meals. So it a little bit depends. I would say kind of check in with yourself about the type of budget that you do have at home, and what are the things that you notice that you are spending more on, or that you really want to be able to join a gym in Amman, which may be 30 to 40 dinar a month. So keep those things in mind ahead of time, and remember that the person that you are at home is going to be similar to the person that you are abroad, even though you're in a new environment. So the creature comforts or the splurges that you're doing at home are probably going to be similar abroad, and then sort of budget those things accordingly. But I would say in terms of being a place that really breaks the bank, you can make a dollar stretch pretty far in Amman.
I would just add to that, as Savannah said, it kind of varies on what it is. So if you're eating local Jordanian food, as she said, amazing. I mean, you can eat some wonderful food for very, very little. I think a falafel sandwich is like a dinar or less, right? Mm-hmm. That being said, if you go to Starbucks, you might pay like the same as you would, if not more, in the US. So the dinar is actually stronger than the dollar. So it's about 1.4. So like 5 dinar is more like $7. For meals, I pulled it up, so I've got it now. For meals, we say between 1,200 and 1,400 over the term. And again, if you're buying local ingredients, doing a fair amount of cooking, having a falafel or shawarma now and then, you can really keep that quite low. If you're going to Starbucks and Burger King and Pizza Hut and a lot of these Western chains, you will be prepared to pay way more. Transit, as Savannah said, super affordable. Electronics, not so much. So like if you decide to buy a digital camera while you're there, or a computer, things like that have been imported are actually quite expensive. And you might even notice too, there are some chain stores like Zara and H&M. Those might be the same as what you would pay in the US, or a little bit more. And then for personal expenses, just your general, so not including meals, but again, will really vary. Are you going to travel to Israel on the weekend? Are you going to go on a big trip over the break? Or are you going to kind of lay low, explore Jordan? It really varies, but we estimate between $900 and $1,100 for the term.
Great, thank you all, really helpful. Allegra, I think we've got one more question, unless last call for questions. If you have any more, feel free to type them in while Allegra's answering this last one. But we have someone who I think very vulnerably admits that they're a little intimidated by the language pledge. Can you give us a sense of what it's like to live in a full-time language pledge, and how students cope with it?
Yes, I can, from personal experience, because I've done a few language pledges in my time. It is very challenging, and it's very humbling to not be the intellectual, mature, articulate college student that you are in whatever your native tongue is, and be reduced to perhaps the linguistic and expressive skills of a child. What I can say is that the language pledge is such a powerful tool, and if you stick to it as much as possible, your gains will be so fast if you can kind of be patient and wait, after the first month. And sometimes it's hard to feel it while you're there, but if you just trust that the language pledge does work. We also have a lot of really great blogs on our website. If you check out the Student Voices page and click Jordan, you'll get all the Jordan blogs. A lot of our students have talked about what it's like to be under the language pledge. So it's challenging, it's fun, it's an opportunity to be really creative. If you don't know a word, you have to figure out how to talk around it or gesture, and keep in mind you're on a program with a bunch of people on a pledge, so everybody's kind of in it together. And you'll find that our Jordanian roommates and language partners and instructors are all so eager and to communicate with you, that I think you'll do better than you imagine. So intensive program, full pledge. For the internship students, in that program, we do have total beginners sometimes. So there are folks who are coming on with zero Arabic, don't know the alphabet yet. you know, in your English classes, obviously you speak English, the course is taught in English. At the internship site, it's okay to speak English. We encourage students to use Arabic as much as possible, even if it's just the chit chat and the Turkish coffee, you know, the lunchroom. You know, maybe the work you're doing is analysis and reports and whatever in English, but that interpersonal social piece, we really encourage you to use Arabic. And then when you are not in the presence of intensive students, you're off in the city by yourself, or you're in your apartment with other internship students by yourself, then it's sort of on you to decide how much of the pledge you want to uphold. CET Center, any program-wide activity, all of our Arabic classes with your Jordanian roommate and language partner, those are all pledge scenarios. So yeah, the pledge is incredibly rewarding. It's tough, but you have a lot of support. Again, you have, you know, 40 other students there with you. You guys are all going through it together. So I think there's a lot of solidarity. And I'll say too, in our, at the very end of the program, we have students kind of reflect. And so many of them say the pledge was like the key and the secret to their success.
Awesome, thanks, Allegra. Savannah, I think we've got another question about funding. This one, I think we can clear up a little bit. So how are food and transportation funds handled? Do we turn in receipts?
Okay, that's a great question. So as Allegra actually mentioned earlier when she talked about housing, the housing is walkable to class. So in terms of like needing to get transportation from housing to the university, that can truly be done on foot. Internship students are reimbursed for their transit going back and forth to their internship placement. I believe that happens like twice throughout the semester, so there's sort of like kind of two chunks. But in terms of your day-to-day, like getting meals or feeding yourself, stuff like that, that's on students. We don't provide, you know, sort of like a stipend unless you're out. There may be a group meal like during orientation or, you know, a farewell dinner, stuff like that, where the whole, you know, it's part of kind of our programming. But day-to-day, lunch, breakfast, making your way around town, that's sort of students to kind of have budgeted for ahead of time and bring their own funds, similar to the way that you maybe do on your home campus.
Thanks, Savannah. Allegra, another question for you. I know you said CET partners with the University of Jordan. Are the courses taught at the University of Jordan? Are they with Jordanian students? Are the English classes just with CET students, or are any local students integrated into the courses?
Yeah, great question. So we physically, our office and our CET Center are physically on campus, and the classrooms that you're in are on campus. Our courses are only for CET students, be they Arabic or English. However, we do a lot of integration engagement with the local university community. For example, we might have like a debate, maybe in class you're learning about, you know, a social issue like the pressure, the economic pressures, and how young people can't afford to get married, and, you know, what are all the implications of that. And then maybe there will be like a panel of Jordanian university students that you'll talk to, or a debate on some sort of issue. And, you know, you'll be in different groups, pro-con, with Jordanian university students kind of talking that through. For our advanced students, and oftentimes this sort of overlaps with a second term continuer. So if you were to come do the year and do fall to spring, but for particularly advanced students, there are some opportunities to sort of informally audit a UJ class that is taught in Arabic for Jordanian students. And then you come back to your core course and kind of discuss and unpack it's sort of like an activity to go audit that course for a day, listen to a lecture, come back and kind of process and unpack with your CET class. So strictly speaking, no, our courses are only CET students, but we do intentionally design ways to kind of engage with the UJ community.
Great, thank you. And an internship question, Allegra. When do interns find out where they're going to be placed?
Yeah, so that happens on site. In the pre-departure process, after you commit to the program, you'll be working with Savannah. You'll have a number of different forms in your account. One, you'll pick the classes that you want, what electives are you interested in, and then you'll have an internship form where you kind of talk through, we ask you to talk through your academic goals for the internship. What are you interested in doing? We'll show you a catalog of some examples so you can kind of get a sense of our network. We'll ask you to rank some preferences, talk about fields that you're interested in interning in, and upload a resume. For internship students too, we'll do an unofficial OPI, actually pre-departure over Skype. Again, it's just a conversation so we can kind of figure out what your level is and incorporate that into your placement. Once you arrive at the site in basically right after the orientation week, you'll go to your first internship meet and greet. It kind of varies depending on the placement. For some placements, it's an automatic, it's your welcome day, your first day, staff accompany you, you're good to go. For some placements, it's a little bit more of an interview. It's not necessarily in the bag. You may have to interview and then your placement will be finalized. We very, very, very rarely have students refused or not get accepted to their internship. If that were the case, staff would work to find you a replacement so you don't have to worry and feel nervous about getting placed. We definitely take care of that. And again, so by I think the end of week 2, everybody's kind of finalized in their placement.
Awesome, thank you. One last question for you just to close this out. What's your favorite food that you can find in Amman?
Me?
Both of you.
Ooh, oh God, that's torturous. I'm genuinely struggling, actually. Well, so if you've never been to the Arab world before, I think your conception of hummus will change irrevocably for the rest of your life. You will be introduced to something entirely different and wonderful. Your average corner store or wherever, just random hummus everywhere is exquisitely delicious. So it's very basic and very simple, but hummus is absolutely excellent. In terms of something a little more perhaps unfamiliar, fette is a wonderful dish. It's can be made with chickpeas or with chicken, and it's like fried pita chips and chickpeas or chicken, and then it's covered with this rich tahini yogurt sauce with cumin and sumac and garlic, and it's warm and delicious and yummy.
Yeah. Allegra is absolutely right about the hummus. I was really impressed sort of with breakfast spreads. There's so many different options. It's not sort of standard, it's eggs, it's bread, and you're done. Lots of salads and falafels and cheeses. But I think what I was not expecting was the abundance of fruit. We actually had some really great fruit. I ate a lot of kiwis, which I wasn't anticipating. So yeah, but we, especially even if you're a picky eater or you're not a picky eater, even better, just try everything, order something, ask waiters what they suggest that you try, and just sort of be adventurous. It's a really good way to start conversations or get to know somebody, or locals, just asking them what they think you should try if you're new to the area.
Thanks. For me, it was the sweets. I loved all the baklavas and the knefe. Is that right, Allegra? Did I say that right?
Yeah.
Delicious honey cake soaked in honey and with a layer of delicious cheese. You just have to try it. Thanks for all those great questions, you all.
Cool. So if you are a summer applicant, your deadline is coming up soon. It's on March 15th. If you don't have an application open or we haven't been in contact, absolutely call or email me, open up an application. Looking ahead though, for fall 2020 programs, your application deadline will be May 1st. And looking all the way ahead, November 1st, 2020 will be the deadline for spring 2021 programs. And while these are the deadlines, CET does do admissions on a rolling basis. So let's say you already know that this is what you want to go for fall 2020. Your homeschool already knows, you're just ready and you don't feel the need to wait until May 1st. Don't go ahead, open up application as soon as it's complete. And we know there's not an overall submit button, but you can trust us. We do know that it's complete when it is. You will get an admissions notice within 2 weeks of that complete application. And honestly, it can be even sooner, especially now when we're kind of far away from the deadline and we don't have as high volume as we do once we get closer to the deadline. So if it helps you prioritize your life or kind of get your academic planning in place, I fully recommend opening up an application and working on it sooner rather than later. It also annoys faculty sometimes, or study abroad recommendations, when you send it out, 2 days before it's due. So if you can get it done earlier, or there's kinks that you need to work out with your home campus, I think it's just always a great idea. Again, that's my contact information there at the bottom. I love a phone call, love an email, so don't be shy about contacting me with any questions, either about anything that you heard here about the program or student life in general, or about just sort of like the logistics and working through your CET application, or questions that you may have about how we interact with your home campus. More than happy to point you in the right direction, even if I'm not ultimately the person that can answer it.
All right, that wraps us up for tonight. Thank you all so much for attending and learning more about Jordan. We hope this made you even more excited to study in Jordan. And like Savannah said, please reach out with any questions you might have, anything that you think of after the session ends that it maybe sparked. Please feel free to reach out and ask questions. Thank you so much. And we will talk to you soon.
Bye. مع السلامة.